lesson, or this conference, is about a math lesson that I taught, turning circle graphs into bar graphs. I have a few questions. Do you have any comments before we?
Do you want me to give kind of an overview and then you ask the questions?
Sure.
Or, okay. First of all, you kind of tied it in the routines of what we've been doing in math as we start with a jump start worksheet and then do a journal, and you kind of tied the graph into your journal, and I thought that was kind of a good way to connect the whole lesson rather than have it all these different segments, so that was a nice thing.
Okay.
And then when you did the circle graph, you converted the circle graph into a table, which they were familiar with. You redid tallies, which was something you had taught them before, and then numbers, and then you did it into the bar graph, which are all those steps that they have to do for this lesson, but it was kind of like it just flowed so smoothly, plus it was bringing in everything that they had done before and just kind of going over it again. There were some other things that I thought were really cool that you did, and one was, you know, when you were saying it's horizontal, it's vertical, like this, and you had them get up and move. It gave them a little bit of movement while they did it, and so that was a very nicely done lesson. The other thing is you kind of brought into some language arts with their writing by reiterating what statements are, what questions are, and you know, somebody had written a statement where there was supposed to be a question. You said, well, is that asking something? You know, so it kind of connects everything together. So very well done.
Good. Good. Well, that makes me feel better about it because I didn't think that it went all that well, that lesson. But that was because it didn't go exactly according to my lesson plan.
Okay. And usually things don't.
And I had to write as soon as I started the lesson, kind of regroup, because I think I said that we were going to write comparisons questions, and a lot of kids didn't know what I was talking about.
Okay.
So, and I was going to have everyone write a question, a comparison question on their board, but because they didn't know what that was, I had to model one first, so I kind of regrouped and kind of changed it a little bit. So
which happens.
I'm glad to hear that you watched it and thought it was okay. But I do have some questions about strategies that you might use to make the lessons more interesting. I felt like we sat a lot for that lesson, and I wondered, is there a better way? I mean, I try to get them to come up to the board, but are there some other techniques that you maybe use?
Well, I think just doing the horizontal and vertical is good. You know, and they could have even done that with their whole bodies, like stand up, make yourself horizontal, okay, vertical, or
that would have been good.
You know, get some exercise in there because it is a long time to sit for kids. The math period is, and I think you know, having them come up to the room, go sit down, go get the whiteboards. All those things bring movement into it, which breaks up the lesson, so that to us it seems like, oh, it's breaking up the lesson. To them, it's like, oh, good, I get to move, so I can continue. So, I think whenever you can get them to actually move around a little bit, or
so even if they're sitting for a while, to get up and because I try to do that all the time, have all their supplies ready, so we don't have to get up. But that's a good point for me to remember. It's okay if they have to get up in the middle and get their whiteboards.
Yep.
Okay, that's good to know. And any ideas for students that, some of the students got this right away, and so this was a long, really not interesting lesson for them.
Yeah, that's always hard. Yeah, the other thing would be, it's almost like creating two lessons then. You could give them harder, bigger numbers and harder, like in the circle graph, instead of having 5 pens, there could be 20 pens or 25 pens. And then, so then their bar graph is more complicated, or, you know, you could do.
It would have taken them long to solve the problems into that.
Plus it's a little more challenging with larger numbers. And then when you're doing the greater than, more than statements, or less than, more than statements, then you can say, well, how much more is it? And if they're doing double-digit addition and subtraction, that's more challenging than, you know, 6 pens and 4 erasers. If you have 64 pens and 50 erasers, well, how many more pens do you have than erasers?
Okay.
See, so to kind of challenge some of them like that. And I know that in a CGI class that we had taken, is sometimes they would put up the circle graph, or put up the problem, whatever, give give them like different sets of numbers they can use and let the kids choose which set they want.
Oh.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So like if they were to have a circle graph and say you needed 4 different things, they could, somebody might choose 2, 5, 8, and 10 as their numbers. Somebody else might choose 10, 12, 18, 19, 20 as their numbers. Somebody else might have 60, 64, 69, you know, bigger numbers. And that way they're all learning how to convert the information from one graph to another, which is your goal of your lesson. But it's more challenging because they're using larger numbers.
Right, okay. That's a good technique.
But that's always hard because it's like, okay, how are you going to do everybody? And, you know, it's almost like you have to let that group go on their own and, you know.
Yeah, you kind of have to be on top of all three.
So it doesn't always work. You have to kind of figure out what you're going to do as far as.
All right, well, those are good ideas.
Yeah.
And the last one I had is to check for understanding. I pretty much tried to closely walk around and watch, see how everyone's doing, but sometimes I notice by the end of the lesson I have missed someone. Is there another way that you check for understanding?
That's, you know, because that's probably the best way to do it, because it's not like you can do an assessment every day.
Right.
And the assessment will ultimately show whether you've missed somebody or not.
Okay, right.
But, and somebody may not, and it's not like you just have one lesson to learn this in. So they may not have gotten it in this lesson, but will they get it tomorrow? And hopefully they'll have it by the time we do the assessment.
Okay.
And if they don't, like when we do those quick quizzes, if you don't, then that's why we do those, is so that you could say, oh, they're not getting this, I need to go back and reteach it. And
okay.
does that make sense?
And that was all my
But there's no way
questions.
when you've got 25 kids in a classroom that you are going to catch everybody every day. And that's a hard thing to
let it go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to do your best, but yeah. There would be some kids that would still be trying to make tally marks, and there's some kids that are ready for long division. I mean,
right. You
that's
definitely
the hard
have
part.
to move on, because otherwise some of them are, that's when I have off-task behavior then too, because I try to get everyone.
Yep,
Let's do it
either
one
you're
more
off
time.
task because you're not getting it, you're so far behind, or you're off task because this is so boring, I've already done this and I already know how to do it. I could teach the lesson. I mean, it's like, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's all the questions I had. That's it.
All right, good.
All right, thank you.
Yep.